Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anna Kamps, and I am going to present my research titled Disinformation During the Dana: Discursive Strategies, Influences, and Citizen Trust. It's especially significant to talk about this because exactly 1 year ago, on October 29, 2024, the Valencian community was affected by an exceptionally intense Dana. The consequences were devastating, as there were floods, loss of life, and a trauma that will remain in the memory of all Valencians. But beyond the natural disaster, there was also an information crisis. In the first hours, the lack of an institutional response created a communication vacuum. Into that vacuum came social media, initially as a survival tool to ask for help or locate missing family members. However, very soon they also became a breeding ground for misinformation. Rumors, conspiracy theories, and unverified news spread much faster than official clarifications. In this atmosphere of information overload, people struggle to distinguish truth from falsehood, often relying more on emotions than on evidence. In this chaotic environment, influencers also played a decisive role. With the ability to reach thousands or even millions of people in a matter of minutes, they became powerful vectors of information. For all the reasons I have just outlined, our research has 4 main objectives. First, to identify the most relevant pieces of disinformation spread during the Dana and analyze them in depth. Second, to study the discursive strategies used in each of them. Third, to examine the profiles of the influencers who contributed to creating, spreading, or amplifying these narratives. And finally, to assess the social impact of these pieces of disinformation. To achieve these objectives, 3 research questions were posed, each with its respective hypothesis. The first research question is, what discursive strategies are present in the analyzed pieces of disinformation? And the hypothesis put forward is that the disinformation about the Dana is based on emotional appeals, anonymous authorities, and the polarizing dynamic of us versus them. The second question, what role did influencers play in spreading disinformation during the Dana? The hypothesis put forward is that influencers played a fundamental role in amplifying disinformation, using their large audiences to spread unverified content aligned with their own perceptions. And finally, the third research question is, what effects did the disinformation have on the public? The hypothesis proposed is that the disinformation contributed to the public's distrust of institutions and the media. The object of study focused on 2 main elements. On one hand, 4 hoaxes, and on the other, 6 influencers. The hoaxes were first the Bonaire Cemetery, second, the Alpha Farbenituser Tunnel, both related to a conspiracy alleging the supposed concealment of victims. Third, fraudulent NGOs, and fourth, the claim that EMED, the Spanish Meteorological Agency, did not issue any alert. These hoaxes were chosen because they spread during the first week, persisted for several days, and strongly shaped public perception. On the other hand, the influencers were identified after the hoaxes, not for ideological reasons, but because of their involvement in spreading them. So we found 2 groups. On one hand, ideological agitators linked to the far right. This is the case of journalist Javier Negre, reporter Ruben Gisbert, and influencer Angel Gaitan. And on the other hand, lifestyle content creators, who usually avoid politics but got involved during the Dana. This is the case of influencers Lola Lolita, Marta Pombo, and Isaac Belk. Regarding the methodology, the study followed a dual approach. On one hand, a discourse analysis, and on the other, a discussion group. The discourse analysis followed the chronology of the hoaxes and examined the posts and videos shared by influencers on Instagram. We based our work on Van Damme's critical discourse analysis, paying attention to narrative structures, mental frameworks, and the linguistic resources used to legitimize the messages. On the other hand, the discussion group was designed to explore how citizens perceived disinformation and what effects it had on them. It was made up of 9 young people between the ages of 18 and 36, all residents of Ribera Baixa, one of the areas most affected by the storm. This ensured both a contextual and emotional connection to the catastrophe. The participants represented a diversity of genders, socioeconomic backgrounds, and political orientations. Here you can see the table of participants, where each one is assigned an alphanumeric combination to ensure their anonymity. Finally, let's move on to the main results organized around our 3 initial research questions. First, regarding the first research question related to discursive strategies, we identified 3 clear trends. 1. A constant use of emotions such as outrage or compassion, designed to provoke immediate reactions and increase virality. This is exemplified by the video uploaded by the influencer Isaac Belk on his social media, in which he expressed outrage because an NGO did not allow him to unload the supplies he had brought to help those affected by the Dana. 2. The recurring use of unverified authorities, such as the example of a friend from the G has told me, or the firefighters have said that. And 3. Narrative structures that clearly set up a us versus them dynamic. A good example is the video by Angel Gaitan, in which he contrasts the supportive citizen who wants to help with manipulative institutions that block aid. Secondly, regarding the role of influencers, it has been observed that they acted as key players in amplifying disinformation. This was especially evident among profiles with ideological motivations. For example, journalist Javier Negre shared a video days after Emmet had already debunked the hoax that its radar wasn't working, and therefore didn't issue a warning. But this was also the case with lifestyle influencers who normally focus on apolitical or entertainment content. However, in their case, participation seemed less intentional, as it appears to have been due to a lack of verification, emotional reactions, or the expectations of their audience. Finally, regarding the effects of disinformation, the focus group revealed a clear erosion of trust in institutions and the media. Here you can see 2 comments collected from the focus group that confirm this. On one hand, I don't believe in the state, and on the other, journalism is nothing more than a mouthpiece for the government in power. In conclusion, our findings highlight that disinformation during the Dana was not marginal, but rather central to the digital conversation. It was structured through emotional and polarized narratives, amplified by influential individuals with different motivations, and contributed to undermining public trust in institutions and the media. These results, therefore, highlight the urgent need to strengthen media literacy, foster critical thinking, and promote responsible communication practices in times of crisis. Thank you very much for your attention, and if anyone has any questions or would like to know more about the topic, please don't hesitate to contact me by email.